Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another special episode here on this beautiful evening of Skomer Live. I'm Lizzie Daly, and I will be your host for this evening for an extremely special episode. You probably, if you were watching on the pages earlier, you would have seen me and the Wardens and all the updates that we've been pushing on with today. Well, we're back because today we wanted to really focus on shearwaters, and what better time to get an insight into the life of shearwaters than doing it in the evening, talking about what's about to happen to all those Manx shearwaters coming back into land. Right now, they'll be rafting on the water. They'll be coming in ready for a busy night ahead. Now, we're so lucky because we have the Wardens back again. There's the weather on our side. It's a little bit windy, but we're going to be bringing you some live action on the cliff tops of Skomer Island right now with puffins and shearwaters and bow cams, the lot. Earlier, we went through a variety of lovely, we touched base with a few scientists. Ollie Paget was talking about the migration of shearwaters and how incredible these animals are able to travel. Then we had Martina was talking about how light pollution is impacting some of the shearwaters off the island and some of her research to help with that. We also learned that the scientific name for a Manx shearwater is exactly, it's a puffinus puffinus. 51% of you knew that. Now 100% of you know that. And of course, we wanted to find out exactly some of your questions and some of your biggest queries about shearwaters. Now, we want more of those questions in. So do get in touch, use the hashtag SkomerLive, and rolling across your screen right now, you'll also see a link to the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales website, where you can go and support the Wardens, support the wildlife, and support the Wildlife Trust, which is what this fantastic series is all about. I am so excited right now to be here and so excited to be bringing you some live action this evening. It's really, really great that we're able to do this. Now, we're going to touch base with some live cameras shortly, but before I do, we love a poll here on Skomer Live. So we have another one because we would like you to decide what we see on next week's episode. And it's between three species. It's so hard to pick because there's so much that goes on the island. But we would like you to choose what's to focus on next week. And the choices are guillemots that we have featured in kind of bits and drabs here and there. Some on the live cams looking at their nesting behaviour. We had a guillemot egg, bridal guillemot a few episodes ago, which is really lovely. So we can really go deep into perhaps the evolution of eggs. Perhaps we'll chat to some scientists and learn more about that. That'll be really great. Or seals. Now, we haven't had much of the cetacean or the marine mammal coverage yet on Skomer Live. That is all to come. We've got a long season ahead. But there is a lovely colony of grey seals that haul out on the beach near North Haven. There's one bull seal that I've got to know actually over my time around and near Skomer Island. And usually when there's tourists and there's a rib boat in North Haven, this big bull seal likes to lie on this rib boat because it's nice and warm. And that's not there right now. So I've heard through the grapevine that he's trying to find his next best place. That's going to have to be the beach on North Haven for now. So we can talk a little bit more about that next week. Or kittiwakes. Do I need to say any more? Sylvia loves kittiwakes. Nathan loves kittiwakes. I love kittiwakes. There's a great colony on Skomer. What is it going to be, guys? Hint, hint, hint. Pick the kittiwakes. Anyway, let's head over to the live cameras and let's see what's on our cameras right now because luckily in the evenings this is when we'll start to see a lot of the seabirds coming in, especially the puffins. We've already had razorbills and guillemots on the cameras. On your cameras right now you can see some of those puffins actually resting. So already the difference between earlier on the live cams to now is quite significant because earlier you'd have those puffins running around, some of them fighting. I've seen a bit of squabbling this evening as well between the puffins, but at the moment they're just kind of resting as they're all coming in, and you can see shooting past that cliff edge lots of small puffins whizzing past the screen there. So they're all coming in after a long day of busyness. We're also very lucky. I mentioned in earlier episodes that we have a brand new live camera and it's on a real burrow. And I'll talk a little bit about the burrows around Skomer, and there are actually some artificial burrows as well. However, this is a real burrow, and the Wardens are absolute experts. You know, they have experience in understanding which burrow is the best to fit with the camera, and they've said they found the right burrow and the right shearwater that they think has returned back to this burrow year on year. And we have a successfully active burrow cam live right now. Have a look at this. It is so exciting. Inside at the top right of your screen, you will see a shearwater. And if you tuned in to earlier's episode, we talked about some of that daily activity. Where do the shearwaters go in the day if they're not on the island? And they'll take it in turns. I mean, before they will actually lay their eggs, they'll be taking it in turns to go out and feed. When they have then that egg, they will still spend some time, one parent going out and foraging locally to feed that chick once a night, and the other shearwater, the other parent, will be heading a bit further afield. Now, I don't know if there is an egg underneath that shearwater. Oh my gosh, can you imagine if there is? Because the day that happens, the day we have an egg, the countdown is on. We will be able to follow the movements of that chick day by day, finding out the insides of its everything while it grows up in this really important time. Maybe we could even name it. I don't know. I'll have to chat to the Wardens about that. But it's really, really exciting because it's an active burrow and it's all going on. And I think we should go and speak to those Wardens now to find out what they think. Nathan and Sylvia, good evening to you both.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hello.
Hopefully everyone's had a good afternoon.
Yeah, hopefully we've had a good day. I mean, we pretty much immediately ran off to do the Guillemot and Razorbill productivity. Had a quick dinner, and we're now focusing on the puffin occupancy. So we actually have Rianne just to the right from us, maybe 2 meters away, looking at the puffins, trying to establish the occupancy of the burrow. So looking at 100 active burrows, so we can then follow and establish the breeding success of those puffins. So busy afternoon, busy evening. Very windy, which is kind of good in a way for puffins. They're very, very active. So yeah, quite a lot going on at the moment, and it's really exciting. And then some really exciting footage to show in the next sort of 10-15 minutes. Hopefully everyone's going to enjoy it, and we will show Manx Shearwaters at night, and that's very exciting.
Oh, fantastic.
During this filming, actually, a little dispute or a fight happened between two Manx Shearwaters right next to Sylvia. They almost didn't know that she was there. So that would be that one Manxie went into the other Manxie's burrow, and he got shooed out, basically. We see this with puffins as well, puffins and Manx Shearwaters, puffins and Manxies with rabbits as well. There's a kind of a hierarchy, I guess, but that's just anecdotal and it's not very scientific. But puffins are kind of top dog, and they'll kick out Manxies, and Manxies will kick out rabbits, and both puffins and Manxies will kick out rabbits.
Nathan, did you just say puffins are top dogs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you heard it here first, everyone. The puffins are the top dogs.
Better than the poodle.
Yeah. And what do you guys think about naming the chick in the burrow? I'm thinking Henry, I'm thinking Jeff, I'm thinking Sarah. I mean, I'm just rolling out a few ideas now because I'm sure everyone watching will already have their own ideas.
Oh, absolutely. You can only imagine the number of names we would have if we actually sent it out to everyone and asked for the name.
Yeah.
But it does sound exciting, actually.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And hey, the best thing about the fact that we're streaming live in the evening right now is it's the evening. I mean, I've been around Skomer and on Skomer in the evening time. It is such an atmosphere. It's alive with kind of seabirds circling. Could you just talk us through what's actually happening around you right now?
Yeah, so especially at this time of day, the puffins really build up in numbers at this time of year as well. And there's just loads of them circling around out there. Obviously, once it gets dark, usually a few hours after it gets dark, it's really good for Manx Shearwaters, hearing their call and seeing them whizzing around as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we're expecting to see lots and lots of Manx Shearwaters tonight. It's quite windy, which makes it easier for them to take off. And yeah, it's fairly cloudy. I mean, we'll see how it develops, but there's no full moon, so yeah, perfect conditions for them. So we are expecting lots and lots and lots of them.
We might even go out to do a bit more catching, which is shown in that footage later. It's worth noting that we're licensed ringers with the BTO, and that's why we're able to handle birds like Manx Shearwaters and put rings on their legs as well. So after we've gone through the training, once we get our permit, then we can do that. So not just anyone can go and pick up Manx Shearwaters like we did.
No, well, no, a very important point, and I think you guys are doing fantastic, considering that you're limited on numbers as well. You're making it happen. You're continuing with that long-term monitoring project. So, absolute hat off to you guys. So thank you, and thanks for sharing that insight into the island. I wish I was there right now. We'll touch base with you again in a little while to get some of those questions answered, because we always get fantastic questions from you guys. You always want to know that little bit more. But first, now I mentioned a few of the things we talked about earlier today in our 12 p.m. episode about the ecology of shearwaters, and we had some fantastic contributors talking about shearwaters there. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what you can see on the live cams, and the Wardens mentioned that this evening they may be heading out to actually go out and monitor and catch those shearwaters. Well, what's that going to be like? Well, tune in at 10 p.m. or onwards. You will start to hear the shearwaters on the live cams and see all the activity. But a lot of the behaviour that you'll see on the cameras will be quite interesting to see how it changes over the season. Right now, we've already seen clips of those shearwaters clumsily moving around on land, coming into their burrows, finding their burrows. And as the season moves on, this will continue on. There'll be lots of back and forth of the parents until about late August. And that's when the adults will actually then leave the burrow, even though the chick's still in the burrow, but they'll leave the chick to be independent for about a week or so. And in that time, that's when you'll start to see those chicks coming out of their burrows and almost like testing the waters. They'll be spreading their wings, doing a bit of flapping. So that'll be a really interesting thing to see on those cameras as well, and something to look out for with our fantastic burrow cam. Now, let's talk a little bit about the breeding of these shearwaters. I keep going on about burrow cam. I absolutely love it. Where in the world can you get an opportunity to see right into the burrow of a Manx shearwater? It's absolutely fabulous. And Manx shearwaters, they have generally quite successful breeding success. It's thought that about 70 chicks out of 100 pairs will fully fledge. A little bit more will actually hatch, and of course that doesn't necessarily represent the continued survival of that chick. There's many challenges that chick has to face before it can successfully go on to survive and make that epic migration. But they generally have quite a high breeding success rate. And there's been a lot of that going on, particularly now. As well, if you think about the time of day that we're in now, those shearwaters will be on the water, kind of coming in a little bit closer. It's one of my absolute favourite things to see is Manx shearwaters rafting and coming in closer. It's a really interesting description of it. There's almost like a shearwater halo around Skomer Island. I absolutely love the thought of that, kind of this ring of shearwaters as the sun is setting and getting closer and closer into Skomer Island before darkness falls, and then they come into the island, and same again the next morning. And actually, if you have the joy of being out in the water in the evening time, you will start to see this slow increase in numbers of shearwaters all flying together in big numbers, and then you'll see this big swirl, this big cloud of shearwaters around the island before they actually then come into land. Absolutely brilliant. I'm sure the Wardens will agree, although they get to experience that every single evening, which is really, really phenomenal. Okay, what else? Another aspect of Skomer Island, which I think is really fascinating, that perhaps a lot of people don't know about, is when darkness falls, there's some interesting things that go on. And actually, there seems to be a bit of a massive takeover of toads. Now, when there's been a bit of rain over the island, the Wardens, I mean, I was chatting to them about this earlier. I've never seen it myself, but not only do they have to go out and monitor the shearwaters in the evenings, but often they have to have a bit of an obstacle around toads. There can be hundreds of toads out in the evenings after some rain. And of course, why are they out? Well, it's a good environment to be out and about, good environment for feeding on worms after a little bit of rain. And actually, it's also good for a bit of mating as well. Of course, the toads need that really good environment, those good conditions to be able to mate. And I'm pretty sure there's only 3 amphibians on Skomer Island. There's the common toad, the common frog, and possibly palmate newts. I'll have to check that with the Wardens. But yeah, phenomenal. I had no idea that was going on. If you've been to Skomer Island and you've seen toads and you've had the absolute flurry of toads underneath your feet, let us know in the comments below. I want to hear it. I've never seen it myself, but again, a really interesting thing about Skomer Island that people don't realise. Now, as much as I'd like to spend all this episode talking about shearwaters, there's another really fantastic bird that we're going to give you a little bit of a glimpse of. And friend and really great filmmaker Dan O'Neil headed out to Skomer Island to learn more about this tiny seabird. It's the Atlantic's tiniest seabird. It's the storm petrel. And here's a little clip of what he saw.
Right. So, what are they doing? Is a good question. So this is where they nest. They feed out at sea. We only know what they feed on because if you handle them, sometimes they vomit. So you can do a stable isotope analysis on what they vomit up to see what they've been eating. Lots of larval fish, zooplankton, and interestingly, one study showed that storm petrels eat 2% dolphin. So we don't think they're operating as gangs, taking down leaping dolphins. Basically, storm petrels, they're really buoyant. They patter along on the surface of the sea, and if maybe a cetacean's been hit by a propeller, or maybe it's just died, anything floating on the surface. So from here, I've watched seals breaking up thornback rays, and the little bits floating on the surface, the storm petrels come along and try and pick that off. So anything that's floating in the top of the water column, they're really, really oily, really, really buoyant. So it's everything they feed on's on the surface of the water. They're so oily, the Shetlanders used to just put a wick in them, use them as a candle. So they patter along on the surface. So that's where petrel comes from. Petrel comes from St. Peter, walking on the sea at Galilee. So they look like they're walking on water. And stormy petrel, they were called. That comes from the fact they follow boats in rough weather. So the mariners used to call them Mother Carey's chickens. And Mother Carey was Davy Jones's wife. She's like the personification of a rough ocean. So basically, her chickens were the souls of drowned sailors. So when the weather got rough, it was like the souls of the dead following the boat. But what they're actually doing here, so this is where they nest. So they're the latest of the seabirds to nest. So most of them won't have eggs yet. So some of these birds we're seeing flying around could be females that have formed the egg and coming in to lay them for the first time. A lot of them are probably male birds that have a crevice and they're waiting for the female to return. And they're just keeping an eye on their crevice, make sure that other birds don't move in. And a lot of them could be non-breeding birds as well that haven't paired yet or haven't got a crevice. But to be honest, we don't really know.
Oh, I love storm petrels. Absolutely love them. We haven't really touched on storm petrels properly yet. There's so much to talk about with this fantastic tiny bird. And of course, again, Skomer Island, important places for their breeding sites. They breed in between rocks and scree slopes and boulders. There's a good number of them on Skomer Island and a few hundred, I'm pretty sure, on Skomer as well. So we'll be coming back to storm petrels at a later date as well. Now, the Wardens talked earlier about some of their monitoring. They've been busy in the evenings, the days, the mornings, every time of day. So they've actually very kindly given us a small window into what happens at night time. And this is what happens when they go out and monitor some of the shearwaters.
Here you can see myself and Sylvia catching Manx shearwaters in the adult survival study plot on the isthmus, and reading their unique number that is on a metal ring on their leg.
FR 88576. And again, FR 88576. Yep.
This research has found that on average 86% of Manx shearwaters that breed on Skomer survive the year. They have survived the breeding season on Skomer, the migration to the waters off of the coast of Argentina for the winter, and the migration back to Skomer. This figure is high, as you would expect for such a long-lived seabird. The oldest known Manx shearwater is 55 years old. You can't tell due to Sylvia's excellent bird handling skills, but Manxies are a powerful bird and they have sharp claws and bill. They definitely can leave a scratch. As we are walking around catching Manx shearwaters, we have to be careful where we put our feet, as this is an area that has many Manxies and also puffin burrows that we might collapse if we put our feet in the wrong place. The most recent census of Manx shearwaters in 2018 estimated that 350,000 pairs of Manx shearwaters breed on Skomer, which is half the world's population of this fantastic species. On our neighbouring islands, Skokholm and Middleholm, where 90,000 and 16,000 pairs are estimated to breed respectively. The night that we filmed this, there was an amazing moonrise over a part of Skomer that's called the Neck. It was great to see, even if we knew that it would put a stop to our catching of Manxies, as it enabled them to see us coming.
Absolutely fabulous footage. Love that. Really, really love that. And it's important to remember that the Wardens, they're experts. You know, they've been doing this for a very long time. Storm petrels in particular, we know that they're quite sensitive. So there's a number of things you need to consider when going in and handling these shearwaters. And as Nathan and Sylvia said earlier, they absolutely have all the necessary skills to do it properly, and you can see that from the footage, even though there was some fighting shearwaters very rudely while Sylvia's trying to do her research. Okay, let's go back over to those live cameras. I just want to share with you what's happening right now on the lovely North Haven camera. So let's have a look. It's a busy place. Honestly, if you do get a chance just to spend half an hour, dinner time, you know, change the channel to the Skomer Live webcam, because there is always something going on. I've seen fighting. I've seen some really lovely close-ups of puffins that kind of curiously coming up towards the camera. I've seen busy burrow building, lots of nest material being brought in. In the shot here, you can see some razorbills. You can see the puffins actually flying in. Razorbills, I saw some guillemots earlier. And it's just a magical sight to be able to have this right here in front of us. And as I said, if you can get a chance later on, have a look, see what happens at night time, see what happens to this entire camera and how it changes. In the night time, I've been watching the shearwaters, and sometimes you can see the odd puffin amongst the shearwater. And I'll be actually quite keen to ask the Wardens about that, whether that ever becomes a bit of a challenge with high activity in puffins and shearwaters at that time. So I want to also throw over back to the burrow cam as well. Now I'm hoping you can see it. You can see the odd bit of movement in the top right hand corner of that burrow cam. Notice as well the shape of the camera, that kind of tunnel that goes into almost like this nesting chamber, which is perfect for that chick to be safe away from predators, safe away from the elements, and where those parents will come in and actually help rear that chick. And honestly, to have this view is really lucky. You can just see the shearwater at the back there. Whether it's on an egg, we don't know. The Wardens have already told us that there will be some eggs right now. It's all kicking off. I feel like this is a real drama all unfolding in front of our eyes. It's going to have to be something that we keep a very close eye on. And that involves you as well watching. We need you to also keep an eye on these cameras and let us know what you see, what excites you, if there's anything new and interesting that you've seen on these cameras. Use the hashtag SkomerLive and get in touch. Let's get some of your questions answered. Wardens, are you still with me? Is it still sunny?
Yes. Hi.
Hello. Oh, I think some people are probably loving having a bit of puffins and some guillemots and some cliffs and burrows over their dinner, or glass of wine, who knows. But some hellos first. Frank says hello from Belgium. God, we've got quite an international crowd. I love it. Hello, Frank. Norma from Plymouth says hi. Lee and Julia from Bridgend say hi. Okay, first question from Maggie Thomas, who would like to know, where do the shearwaters go when they leave Skomer? And I've touched on this briefly, but perhaps you can tell a little bit more about this kind of daily activity in the shearwaters.
Well, they head down to the coast, in the waters off the Argentina, and they can whiz down there really fast, sort of 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They'll usually come down to the northwest of Africa and then go across the Atlantic down to Argentina.
That's it. There's that absolutely incredible migration, and you see that lovely big map of some of the GPS tags that have been attached to these shearwaters to really follow that journey. It is really, really, really great. If you want to learn more about that, watch our earlier episodes. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, Jonathan Marsh said that Skomer is the best place in the world. I think we all agree with that, absolutely. Anjali wants to know if there are any pufflings on the island yet. Sylvia, we spoke about this earlier. Are there pufflings?
We did not yet, but so we just looked back at the calendar from last year, and we had first adult puffin carrying fish on the 16th of May. That's when we saw the very first one, which indicates that there was a puffling in one of the burrows in North Haven and at the Wick on that day. So that's 3 days away. So who knows? Who knows? Anytime, any day now, if there are any out there already.
Sylvia said it here. It's 3 days, everyone. Put it in the diary. 3 days, puffling alert. If the Wardens do actually find a puffin in the next week, of course, of course they'll let us know, and we'll be all over it. Don't worry, for the next week of updates as well. We've got a really nice question here from Julia from Bridgend, who asks, what's the most exciting spring migrant to arrive on Skomer this year so far?
That icterine warbler that we showed earlier today, that's the best bird so far, definitely.
But the very vibrantly looking one actually was at Morimere Pond earlier today. Our first yellow wagtail this year. Very exciting, very bright yellow, and it just looked amazing with all the kittiwakes collecting mud from the pond, and it's just this yellow bird there in the middle doing its thing, feeding, and that was wonderful. Loved it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and I mean, Skomer's quite unique, isn't it? In that you get some quite rare migrants, but also, you know, you get quite a lot of other spring visitors and autumn visitors on the island as well.
Yeah, definitely. Islands in general are great for migrant birds dropping in. They'll often be the first or the last port of call land-wise before they cross over the water.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I mean, we should push on because we have lots of questions coming in. Grace asks, do storm petrels dive to feed?
Not really. So you'll most often see them hovering at the water surface and just picking up crustaceans and small fish that swim really close to the surface. They can dive a little bit, but they prefer not to.
Fantastic. Paul asks, have you had any finch yet on the island?
Goldfinch.
Greenfinch, 2 of those
Nice.
that were heading north, probably towards Ramsey, I would think. Any other finches? From like the most memorable ones?
Yeah. Still waiting on a rarer finch.
Still waiting. I mean, to be continued, I think. Don't worry, Skomer Live will be here every week for the rest of the season. So stay tuned for that. I mean, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We can check in. Chaffinches. You've had chaffinches?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
There we are. Okay.
We've had a few.
All right. Lovely. Okay, we've got time for one more question, I think. We've got a few questions coming in from about storm petrels, and as I mentioned, yeah, we'll definitely focus on them a little bit later. That iconic kind of dancing on the water is something not to be missed. I'm sure you'll agree. Okay, which one to pick? From Neil, how many puffins are there on the island at this time of year? It's a really great question. I mean, we've talked about it already, but if you could give a simple figure, how many?
34,000 individuals. So we count them in individuals on Skomer, and we do this count just before the breeding season, really, while they're building up and loafing before there's any eggs in the burrows and any of them are hiding in burrows. And we do this because there's so many Manx Shearwaters in burrows. So it's kind of a plan B method for monitoring puffin population, but it's the best one we've got due to so many Manxies.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Right then, Wardens, you've got a busy night ahead of you. I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you ever so much for popping in again and seeing us. I expect some mega updates, please. We want pufflings in 3 days' time. We want more chicks. We want all of it. And of course, we'll be having our iconic chosen species next week, which we'll reveal just in a minute. So thank you very much for tuning in, and guys, we'll see you next week. For all of you still watching, a massive thank you for actually tuning in and sending in your questions. Some lovely questions there. And we have the results to the poll. Are you ready? Is it going to be the guillemots, the seals, or the kittiwakes? It's seals. 45% of you voted for seals. Guys, what happened? I mean, to be fair, 37% of you followed with kittiwakes and 18% of guillemots. I think that might be because we've already featured guillemots a few times, but it'll come back around and we will get those kittiwakes in there. But next week, we'll be talking about the characteristic seals that you can find around the island. How lovely. We may even be able to actually show you some of the live action if the grey seals are still hauled out there. Fantastic. Well, blinking heck, what a fantastic evening special. Remember that if you want to support the Wardens, the work, the Wildlife Trust, and you can do so by going to the link in the banner at the bottom. Really appreciate you tuning in and can't wait for the updates over this following week. Fingers crossed for a puffling, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Skomer Live. See you later. Bye.